Hello. Good morning. It's Wednesday, March 10th. I'm Jason Stanton. I serve as senior pastor at First Lutheran in Onalaska, Wisconsin. And I am musing on our devotion, our Lenten devotion, again and again. This week, we're talking about how again and again we're shown the way. And, there's two ways of thinking about being shown a way. One would be being shown a path, another being shown a method. Like how to get there. Being shown a path is pretty handy if you're lost or if you've never been there before, you have no idea how to get to a place. It's better to follow a car toward a destination that you've never been to than to try to find it yourself. Of course, we now have Google Maps, but for those of you who might remember not knowing exactly how to get somewhere, and maybe it's kind of complicated, it's helpful to be able to follow a car. But there's also how not just being shown a way like a pathway, but a method way, how to do something. I don't learn personally very well through verbal directions. This just happened actually this past weekend. We were trying to learn a new board game. To sit there and read the directions, or if someone, what's even worse, is if someone else who knows how to play the game tries to explain it to you, and there's a lot of things that can happen on the board and whatever, and they're just like, and then you can do this, and then or you can do that, and then you can roll, but if you don't choose to roll, you can that. And it's like it can be very confusing. And so sometimes you just feel like, what? Can I just do it? Just learn by doing it, and we'll have a practice round, and, learning the method through verbal or even written instructions. Sometimes, let me just practice. Let me just do it and fail at it a couple times, then I'll figure it out. But again and again, God shows us the way. I think sometimes it is a pathway, like here's how to navigate those waters. But other times it is, here's the method I, God, use when I come up against this or come up against that. And in John chapter 2, verses 13 to 22, which is what our text is, Jesus shows the way to address corruption. And as you read that text, it's about Jesus overturning the money changers' tables in the temple. I would refer you to Pastor Ben Morris's sermon from this past Sunday. If you didn't hear it, go to our website and find that worship service from this past Sunday. It should be actually pretty easy to find. His sermon is excellent, talking about what the temple really was and why Jesus was as angry as he was. But, the devotion for today goes along with that idea. And it's about how in 1965, the author's grandfather moved his family of 6 to Birmingham, Alabama, and became the pastor that followed a pastor at First Presbyterian in Birmingham. So the predecessor for this author's grandfather at this church was the one who was among those whom Martin Luther King Jr. addressed and said his letter from a Birmingham jail. And so in response to Martin Luther King Jr.'s letter from a Birmingham jail, these 8 white clergy wrote, this says, in essence, they said to him, "We agree with your movement, but your methods are too harsh. The demonstrations are destructive and causing too much backlash. You're bringing agitators into our city. Wait for a better time. Negotiate gently." And that is how a lot of us feel when we're among the privileged ones and aren't feeling the urgency of needing liberation from some persecution. Or as she says, for those who willingly or unwillingly benefit from systems of oppression, It may feel threatening and terrifying to see them all come tumbling down, but for those held within the unrelenting grip of injustice, it must be completely and utterly liberating. We may want to, when we see, this happened last summer, as riots happened across the country. I don't think anybody is like, yay, riots, that's great. But rather than enter into those who are agitating, maybe it is a peaceful demonstration. Even that sometimes for many of us is like, oh, that's a little too political, or it's a little too harsh. They were blocking traffic. I heard that there were demonstrations at Riverside Park. They were blocking traffic, which imposed for minutes at least, some inconvenience on people who were driving by, or they were loud outside an office building or whatever, or even those of us who have picked on athletes who kneel for the anthem, that's disrespectful. And so that's it. It's like, well, that's disrespectful, that's loud, that's inconvenient, that's too much. And so a lot of us would rather just stay on the sidelines. Maybe we don't want to actively overturn tables, and maybe we don't want to speak out against those who are agitating. A lot of us find it more comfortable to just kind of stand back and, this doesn't affect me, so it's not really my problem. That's the part that we Christians really need to think about during this season of Lent. If this is a season of repenting, just standing by actually is just as bad, maybe worse, than calling out agitators as though what they're doing is wrong. We're called to love neighbor. We just are. And that means race in America, poverty in the world's richest nation, voting rights, unequal education, mass incarceration of people of color, unequal access to credit and loans, all that stuff, even though it's not my problem at all because I'm a white man and I don't experience any of those things as problems, because it's the problem of my neighbor, it is my problem. And so standing on the sidelines, hoping that it doesn't have to affect me, it already does. That's the challenge for us now as we seek to love our neighbor, is to move ourselves from sidelines and into the conversation. It's a way that we keep faith alive.